When I saw him standing at my gate, my breath caught in my throat. My knees almost buckled because for a split second I thought I was seeing a ghost. It had been a year, a whole year since I last laid eyes on that dog. And yet, there he was, thin as a shadow, ribs sharp against his skin, fur matted with mud and scars I didn't remember. But it wasn't the way he looked that froze my blood. It was his eyes. Those eyes weren't just looking at me, they were reaching for me, like they were trying to say something no human language could ever capture, and in that instant, the world around me just stopped. The sounds of the street faded, the wind vanished. All I could hear was the pounding in my chest. You ever look into an animal's eyes and feel it speak without words? If you have, you know what I mean. It's not imagination. It's something real, something raw, like your soul recognizes theirs. I stumbled forward, barely able to breathe. My throat tightened as I whispered his name, almost afraid to say it out loud, like saying it might shatter the fragile reality in front of me. Buddy. The second that name left my lips, his tail gave the tiniest twitch. Not wild wagging, not the happy shake I remembered, just a slow, trembling move, like he'd been holding on to that word for dear life. I swear, in that moment, my legs went weak, my vision blurred. Every memory I'd buried deep came crashing back all at once, like a wave that knocked the air right out of me. I saw the rain, the rope, his eyes that night, the promise I made, and that's when everything came flooding back to the day I first found him. But right now, God, right now, I couldn't think about the past. All I could think was, how was he here? Why? He shouldn't even know where I live now. He shouldn't know how to find me. And yet, here he was, looking at me like time never passed. I reached for the gate with shaking hands. My voice cracked as I whispered again, "Buddy, is it really you?" He didn't move at first. He just stood there, head low, tail still, like he was waiting for permission, or maybe waiting for me to prove I was still the same person he once trusted. I dropped to my knees, didn't care about the dirt, didn't care who saw me. I just knelt there, hands open, heart pounding so hard it hurt. And then, slowly, so slowly, he took a step, then another, each one like it cost him everything he had left. When his nose finally touched my palm, my whole body gave out. Tears I didn't even know I'd been holding back just broke free. I pressed my forehead to his and choked out, "Oh God, you came back." And here's the part I'll never forget as long as I live. He sighed, like an actual sigh of relief. His body shook, not from fear, but from something that felt like release, like he'd been carrying a weight for so long. And finally, he could let it go. I buried my fingers in his dirty fur, feeling every bone, every scar, and I hated myself for all of it. A year. Where had he been? What had he gone through? The questions screamed inside me, but none louder than the one that nearly tore my heart out. Why did he come back? If you're wondering if animals forget, if you think time erases love, look into the eyes of a dog who walked God knows how many miles just to stand at your gate. That look will change you forever. I pulled back just enough to look at him again. His face was older, harder. His left ear had a tear in it. There was a gash across his side that had healed ugly. But those eyes, they were the same, maybe even deeper now, like they'd seen the whole world and still chose to come back here. I thought he just came back for food. That's what made sense, right? Dogs follow their stomachs. Maybe he was starving, desperate, and somehow remembered where I once gave him shelter. That had to be it. At least, that's what I told myself in that first moment. But I was wrong. Nature had a bigger plan, a plan I couldn't even imagine. And if I'd known then what I know now, I think I would have held him tighter, because that dog wasn't just back in my life for a meal. Number he came back for something much greater, something that would change everything I believed about loyalty and about love. The night I found him, I can still feel the cold in my bones. It wasn't just rain, it was a storm that cut through you like glass. Streets empty, air thick with that smell of wet asphalt and despair. I wasn't even supposed to be there. I had taken a wrong turn trying to get home. Funny how life works, isn't it? My headlights caught something at the edge of the road. At first I thought it was trash, a dark shape half hidden in the mud, but then it moved, just barely. A twitch, a slow lift of a head that looked too heavy for the body underneath it. I pulled over without thinking, opened the door, and stepped into the freezing rain. The wind slapped me like it was warning me to go back, but I didn't, because by then, I saw him. A dog, tied to a splintered wooden post with a piece of rope that cut so deep into his neck it was almost part of him. His fur was matted and soaked, ribs like prison bars under his skin. But the worst part? His eyes. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He just looked at me, as if begging without sound. No anger, no fight, just this hollow, silent plea that said, "Please, not another person who walks away." I don't even remember reaching for my knife. 1 second, I was frozen. The next, I was kneeling in the mud, rain streaming down my face like tears. My hands shook so bad I almost dropped the blade, but I cut that rope. It snapped like a gunshot in the storm. And then, nothing happened. He didn't run. He didn't leap into my arms like the movies show. He just stood there, shivering, staring up at me like he couldn't believe it. Like freedom was a trick. So I spoke, software slow. "You're okay now. You're coming with me." He tilted his head, barely, as if listening to words no one had said to him before. And then, with this almost fragile hesitation, he took one step toward me, then another, until his head brushed against my knee. That was the moment something inside me cracked wide open. I wrapped my jacket around him, even though it meant I'd freeze, lifted him, God, he weighed nothing, and carried him to the car. Every drop of rain that fell on his face felt like an insult to the world. How could anyone leave him like that? When we got home, I dried him with every towel I owned. He didn't fight, didn't flinch, just stood there, trembling, like he was still waiting for the pain to come. I gave him water, food. He ate like he was afraid it would disappear if he blinked. And then, the thing that broke me. I sat on the floor, legs crossed, just watching him. And slowly, so slowly, he walked over and laid his head on my lap. I can still feel the weight of it. That trust, so small, so fragile, but there. It was like holding someone's broken heart in your hands and knowing if you squeeze too tight, it'll shatter. I bent down and whispered, "You'll never suffer again. I promise." The words came out before I even thought about them, but the second they left my lips, they became a vow I felt in my bones. He sighed, actually sighed, like a man who had carried the world and finally put it down. That night, he slept at my feet. Every time I shifted, his head would lift, like he was making sure I didn't disappear. And every time, I'd whisper, "I'm here." Until finally, those tired eyes closed. But here's the thing about trust. It's fragile, and sometimes, promises break. Life doesn't care about your vows. It doesn't care about words spoken in the dark when you think nothing can tear them apart. I thought saving him was the end of his story. That I'd rescued him, and we'd ride off into some quiet, happily ever after. I was wrong. It wasn't the end. It was just the first chapter. From the second night on, he never let me out of his sight. If I stood up, he stood up. If I moved from the couch to the kitchen, he followed so close I could feel his breath on my ankles. It wasn't annoying, it was heartbreaking, like he was afraid that if he blinked, I'd vanish, and he'd wake up tied to that same post in the rain. I started calling him Buddy. It just slipped out one morning when he was curled by the door, waiting for me to finish my coffee. "Come on, buddy," I said without thinking. His ears twitched like it was the first nice word he'd ever heard in his life. After that, it stuck. He learned his name fast, faster than any dog I'd ever seen. First, it was the little things, a glance when I said it, a tail flick. Then, within days, if I called Buddy from the other room, he'd come running like the floor was on fire, like he couldn't get to me fast enough. Nights were the hardest, for both of us. I didn't want him in the living room alone, so I brought an old blanket into my bedroom, laid it by the bed. He curled up so tight it looked like he was trying to disappear into himself. I knelt down, stroked his head, and whispered, "You're safe now. I'll never hurt you." The words came easy, but every time I said them, I meant them more. That became our ritual. Every night, before I turned out the light, I'd talk to him, not like a pet, but like a person. I told him about my day, about how the world didn't make sense sometimes. And even though he never spoke, his eyes, they listened. They understood in a way no human ever had. After a week, he started smiling. Not with his mouth. Dogs don't smile like us, but with his eyes. That look, that soft, glowing look that says, "I trust you. You're my whole world now." If you've seen it, you know. And if you haven't, God, I hope you do someday. He followed me everywhere, to the store, on walks, even to the bathroom if I didn't shut the door fast enough. It was funny at first, then humbling, because I realized when you're the only safe place someone has ever known, they cling to you like air. But life has a way of testing every promise you make. I started falling behind on bills. My hours at work got cut. Some days I came home so tired I just sat on the floor with Buddy's head in my lap, wondering how I was going to keep it all together. He didn't care about money, didn't care about the world closing in on me. He just cared that I was there. And that look in his eyes, it made me believe I could handle anything. Then one day, a friend came over, saw Buddy curled at my feet, and she said it so casually, like it was nothing. "You can't keep him forever, you know." The words hit me like a punch. I laughed it off, but that night, they echoed in my head, over and over. You can't keep him forever. What if she was right? What if life got so hard I couldn't feed him? What if I lost everything? The thought clawed at my chest until I could barely breathe. I pulled Buddy close, buried my face in his fur, and whispered like a prayer, "No, never. I promised you." His tail thumped against the floor like he believed me without question, like the word forever actually meant something. But deep down, a seed of fear had been planted, one I couldn't shake, because what if life forced me to break a promise I never planned to break? What if loving him wasn't enough? I thought I'd find a way to keep him, that no matter what, we'd stick together through everything. I was wrong. The eviction notice came like a thunderclap, cold, harsh, impossible to ignore, the kind of letter that rips through your world and leaves a silence heavier than any storm. I stared at it for what felt like hours, unable to move. The landlord's words were clear. I had 30 days to leave. No exceptions, no mercy. My mind raced. How could I keep everything together when everything was falling apart? And then, like a knife twisting deeper, I realized I couldn't take Buddy with me. Not this time. I'd lost my job a month ago, bills stacked up like tombstones, and now a move out of town for work, forced and sudden. The only option was to leave him behind. I tried to find someone who could love him like I did. Called every friend, every neighbor. No one said yes. It felt like I was handing him off to strangers, to a world full of people who didn't understand, a world that didn't care. I didn't want to believe that was the end, but the truth was clear. I couldn't take him, and I couldn't leave him alone. So I found a man, a quiet man with tired eyes, who promised to care for Buddy, said he loved dogs and had a big yard, said he'd feed him and keep him safe. I wanted to believe him. The morning I left, the sky was gray and heavy with rain. Buddy sat by the door, his head low, eyes wide. We didn't speak. Words felt useless, but I knelt down, looked deep into his eyes, those same eyes that had trusted me so completely, and whispered, "I'll come back for you. Don't hate me." His tail gave the faintest wag. That tiny flick was like a promise from him too, like he knew this wasn't goodbye forever. I lifted the leash, opened the door, and the man took Buddy gently by the collar. I stepped into my car, heart hammering so loud I thought he'd hear it. I glanced back one last time. Buddy was watching me, silent, still, as if he was waiting for the car to stop, for me to call him back. But I didn't. The rain blurred the moment, but I swear it looked like tears slid down his muzzle, and then the car pulled away. I told myself he'd forget me, that in time he'd find new love, new safety, that I'd made the right choice. I was wrong, because some promises aren't just words. Some promises live inside the eyes of the ones we love, and sometimes they come back to remind us what really matters. That year was the longest silence I ever lived through. Every day felt like walking through a thick fog, trying to hold onto a memory that kept slipping farther away. I worked harder than I thought I could, trying to keep my head above water, but the nights, oh, the nights, were the worst. I'd lie awake in a quiet room, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of his absence pressing down on my chest. Sometimes in the dark, I thought I heard him, the soft tap-tap of paws on the floor, the gentle scrape of nails on the old wooden planks. But when I reached out, when I opened my eyes, there was nothing but silence. I'd sit up, heart racing, searching the shadows, wondering if maybe I was going crazy, or maybe if he was still out there, somewhere. I tried to tell myself that the man I left him with was good, that he was feeding him, keeping him warm. I even got messages, short texts that said, "Buddy is fine," but the words felt empty, like echoes in a hollow room. Sometimes I'd whisper into the darkness, hoping the wind would carry my voice to him. "If you're still out there, I miss you." And I meant it with everything inside me. I thought he was safe forever, thought the nightmare was over, that the storm had passed. But that day changed everything. I was sitting on my porch late one night when I heard it, scratching at the gate, software tentative, like a whisper against the cold metal. At first I thought I was imagining it, the wind, a branch scraping, but then it came again, clearer this time, scratching, patient, insistent. My heart slammed in my chest. I stood up slowly, the night air suddenly thick and sharp. Every step toward the gate felt heavier than the last, like walking underwater. And then I saw him, thin, scarred, ragged in a way that made my breath catch sharp in my throat. But those eyes, they burned with something I could never forget. Recognition, hope, a fire that had survived 1,000 storms. My legs gave out. I dropped to the ground, hands trembling, breath gone. For a moment, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He was here. Closer now, the dog lifted his paw, slowly, carefully, and placed it right on my chest, just like he did that first night. That night, I saved him. It wasn't just a touch. It was a message, a promise. He looked at me like he was saying, "You kept your word." Tears burned my eyes. I wanted to shout, to scream, to collapse into the night with relief and wonder. But even as I held him, hugging him like I'd never let go again, a question knifed through the joy. Why now? How did he find his way? Because I thought the miracle was over the moment he was back in my arms. I was wrong. The real blow was still waiting. The truth came crashing down like a storm I never saw coming. I finally tracked down the man who was supposed to care for Buddy. His eyes didn't meet mine. He told me bluntly, coldly, that he'd abandoned the dog months ago, left him by the side of a highway, alone. I sat there, numb, heart pounding so loud it felt like a drum in my ears. How could anyone do that? How could they break the trust of a creature who had survived so much already? Then it hit me. Buddy hadn't just wandered back. He hadn't been found or rescued again. He had walked miles and miles through storms and hunger just to find me. I remembered that night, the first night I brought him home, the night I whispered to him through the dark, "You're safe now. I'll never hurt you." He came back for those words, not for food, not for shelter, for those promises that had etched themselves into his heart. It's impossible to explain how a dog can carry human words in his soul, but sometimes words hit harder than fists. They can chain you or set you free. Buddy had been chained by pain and fear his whole life, but those words, my words, had broken those chains, had called him home. I wanted to cry, to laugh, to fall to my knees and thank the universe for this miracle. Because that dog, he wasn't just a dog anymore. He was proof that love, even in the darkest places, can survive. After everything, I knew I couldn't go back to my old life, the job that drained me, the routine that felt empty, the world that forgot what really matters. I quit, not because I was reckless, but because I had finally seen something that changed me forever. Buddy changed me. I started a rescue project, just a small one for now, a place for lost souls like him, for animals who've been forgotten, abandoned, broken. Because if there's one thing I learned from that dog, it's this: promises matter, even to those who can't speak. Every animal out there understands more than we give them credit for. They feel fear, hope, love, betrayal. They remember kindness, or the lack of it. They carry words deep inside their hearts, even if they never say a single one. That dog taught me that. He taught me that trust isn't given lightly. It's earned. It's sacred. And sometimes, it's the thing that saves us all. So, if you ever think animals don't understand what we say, think again. They hear us in ways that go beyond words, and they never forget. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that wraps around you like a soft blanket, pulling you into a stillness you don't want to break. Buddy lay at my feet, peaceful, safe, finally at rest. The same dog who had wandered through storms and hunger, through pain and silence, was here, with me. His chest rose and fell in slow, steady breaths, his scars still there, but softened by time and care. His eyes closed, trusting, unafraid. I knelt beside him, fingers trembling as I brushed his fur. "I kept my word," I whispered, "and so did you." The words hung in the air between us, heavy with everything we'd both been through. Sometimes, when I'm alone with that memory, I can't believe it happened. Not really. If someone told me this story, I'd call them a liar, say it was made up to comfort the broken. But I saw it. I felt it. Every impossible moment. The dog didn't come back for food. He came back for love. That love, quiet, patient, fierce, is stronger than time, stronger than pain, stronger than everything that tries to tear us apart. It's the kind of love that changes you forever. If your heart is full right now, write this: animals remember love, because they do, and that memory, it stays with you. If your heart just stopped like mine, hit subscribe, because nature still has secrets like this, and they're all true.